What up, y'all? Is that we on? We on? Cool. What up, y'all? Welcome to Hotep-ish. I'm your host, Dewan B. Where we talk that intelligent shit talk. Intelligent-ish. Live on the phone, I got one of my favorite people. My inspiration when it comes to stand-up comedy. One of the greatest human beings on earth. Miss Aida Rodriguez. How you doing?
Good, man. Thank you. I appreciate that so much. Today has been a hard mental wellness day for me. It's been a hard day for me, but I've been looking forward to having this conversation with you all day. This is definitely the highlight of this Tuesday for me.
You got to take care of that mental well-being. People don't understand how important that is. Could
Yep.
you turn Aida up a little bit in my microphone over here, please? There we go. Okay, I hear. There we go. Yeah, it's that people don't understand how important it is to have to be mentally sane. But before we even get into that, I want to make sure to let everybody know who's on the phone. Aida has I've been knowing Aida for a while, but the resume, especially lately, has just been killing the game. The Young Turks, They Ready, The Breakfast Club. Aida, that Breakfast Club interview you did to me was one of the dopest interviews of last year.
Thank you.
Like, when I tell you that was one of the most inspirational interviews that I've seen, and here's why I call it inspirational, because you told the truth. And as someone, people don't understand, a lot of artists don't understand, listeners, people watching these shows, we kind of know when you bullshitting and when you not. We'll watch it, be like, we're not long with you, be like, okay, yeah. Well, that was some fake shit. No, not with you.
Funny.
Like, how was things changed with you since doing that Breakfast Club interview?
Well, for me, the interview was, it was just part of all of the things that were happening at the same time that got my name out there.
Okay.
It was helpful. But a lot of people did show up for me and support. But, I don't provide the salacious stuff. So I don't go on the Breakfast Club and celebrity bash and, bring the tea.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, this is not my personality, who I am. And I celebrate everybody for being who they are. But just for me, it was just about having a platform to speak about the things that are important to me that I want to use my platform for. So the Breakfast Club is a venue where it's predominantly African-American, Black.
Yes.
Very few Latinos have been on that show. And I wanted to make sure that I spoke the word that I speak everywhere I go, because that Black and brown unity and solidarity is very important for me. But I also just believe in being real with your people, and if you we can blame white people for everything for the rest of our lives, and we'll always have an excuse to blame them, right? They've given us a reason, or the powers that be.
Yeah.
But if we don't hold ourselves accountable, then we'll never see real change. And so for me, it was like, am I going to go on there and tell a secret about Tiffany? Or I was like, I'm probably not going to do that.
Yeah.
It was important for me to use that for what's important. And that, so in that aspect, a lot of people who came to me from there are people who also find importance in those matters. And so it's been good for me, because I'm not for everybody, and I don't want to be for everybody if everybody is some bullshit. I want to be for the people who are, really about that movement.
And that's the real thing. People don't understand that everything ain't for everybody, and it's cool that something's not for you. You just gotta, everything ain't gonna be for you. And a lot of people take offense when they come across things that aren't for them, instead of just saying, "Hey, just let it pass." Like, and
I said Tuesday, but I meant Thursday. I feel like I am legend. I don't know what day it is anymore.
It's been like that today. It's been one of them kind of days.
It's been one of those days. I was just like, whoa.
Okay. Yeah. So, I got what do you think, Aida, out of everything that's been happening, especially recently, what do you feel was your biggest break over the last few years that's really gotten you out there?
I would have to say they ready. I think they ready. Put me on a platform that was visible to millions of people, and created an opportunity and everything around they ready. From, I sat down, like a lot of people don't know. I sat down and did my own press. I did my own plan for publicity because I couldn't afford to pay like one of those big publicists.
Yeah.
And I targeted these media outlets, Breakfast Club included, Karen Hunter, which actually Karen Hunter got a lot of people came to me from Karen Hunter. A lot of people listen to her.
Yeah, I've heard of her. Is she on XM, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
New York.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it was those platforms. And so it was all of the stuff that happened around They Ready, the PR stuff around it that I sat down and crafted at home with, my partner. We sat down and said, these are the places that we're going to hit. And so that for me was probably the more, it really, catapulted me into a different place where other people started taking note of who I was and what I was talking about.
Okay. Yeah, that's what's up, man. Because the reason why I wanted to go ahead and get those things out there, because I want people to know a little bit of, your background a little bit more, how you got, like, where you are right now, but also how you got here. I want to tell people who listening, I didn't get there I've never seen her, even with that buck-eyed, silly-looking, goofy-ass face on her face when she go around these people. She's the same people. She smiles. She's a great person, but she stays who she is no matter who she's around. You know what I mean? And observe you from a distance, I would always see how your style of comedy is very direct. You get on people. You don't mind offending anybody, and to see you be that way and still be a regular at the Laugh Factory. To me, I thought that was just some big shit. Being a regular at the Laugh Factory, telling the truth. And you done gone way past that, So I just think that it's inspiration to people like me out there who are on my way up, who I like telling the truth. I like saying things as they are. Seeing you make it to where you made it is inspiration to people like me to let you know, hey, you just got to keep pushing it through, and be yourself.
Absolutely. And I appreciate that. And, I think that one of the things is I always believe in staying on the ground. Like, being a comedian for me has never been about assimilating into celebrity culture, because I think that that's the most dangerous thing that can happen to a stand-up comedian because of the nature of what we are and what we represent culturally. So for me, it's always been about how I'm going to be the voice of the people or of people if I am in the crowds. Like, for me, it's just about staying in the ground. And, I'm one of y'all. Like, I belong to that community, not like I'm not like y'all no more. Like, that to me is toxic, and it doesn't service being a great comedian.
Yeah. And it was really good seeing you on They Ready, because I remember seeing you and Tiffany out there on the grind before either of y'all, got to where you are right now. And I would see how cool you guys. I've always respected your comedy, and not just comedy, because I don't like to keep it just on comedy. The people I fucks with in this game, people I respect as humans, and that to me, that's bigger than any job, that a person can hold. And I would see how you and Tiffany would really work together. How have things been with you and Tiffany now that she's gotten on big? I know you guys still talk. I know that she's still.
I talked to her today. I was on the phone with her this morning for like 2 hours. That's one person that I call when I am down. We have we've had a policy for many years that's what we do with each other. So if she's down, she'll call me, and vice versa, because we know we have so many things in common as people, and the way that we grew up. Well, our relationship is fine. She's really busy. I don't get to, see her and spend as much time with her, but I'm busy too. So it's not like, we just don't have the time, but we're building something, and we have a plan to create something bigger, for people that are like you and people who look like us that are also coming up and trying to do some things, especially, Black men who don't necessarily, you got to worry. Black men have to worry about everything all the time, no matter what they do for a living. The skin that you're in is always a threat to somebody or a problem for somebody. So, she and I always talk about like the plan, and so we're still great. Like, that's my girl, and I'm so happy to see her win. She's been doing stand up twice as long as me.
Yeah.
Exactly twice as long. So my years are 12, she's 24.
Okay.
So she deserves all that. She works really, really hard.
Yeah. Because, like, seeing you and Tiffany Haddish out there, like, y'all, it looked like two high school friends. Like, that goofiness you still have in that late middle school, early high school years, you guys still had that. So it's not as if you're just some people who are funny on stage. Y'all just funny, good people, Yeah, that's just good to see.
Yeah, no, that's my girl.
Yeah.
Today she was gardening, and it's funny, we were talking about businesses in our communities that are owned by people of color that we could support during this time. So that's what the conversation was telling me. There's a place that we eat fish, Mel's Fish place over there on that side. She was like, they'll Uber Eats. Like, that's what we were talking about. She was like, I'm going to order on Monday because they got the crab food. Like,
and Tiffany got that school opening up, too. I heard she has a school. Like, that's real talk right there. I'm going to have to holler at Tiffany when it comes to that school part of it because, Breakthrough, I got to be a part of that. I got to be in some kind of way talking to them kids because that's what I do.
Well, we'll make that happen. But, we got plans. Like, today, she inspired me to, I am actually assembling a database of Black and brown people who've lost their jobs that are in the sewing and textiles business.
Okay.
And I'm going to raise, I'm creating a fund for them.
Okay.
So that they can make masks and gowns for the hospitals, for the doctors that are fighting this stuff, but get paid for it while they're doing it because they're not working.
Yes.
So that's what I've been working on today, in my solemnness. But I was just like, it's a lot of Black women and brown women who sew for a living that nobody ever knows to acknowledge. That you wear the towels, like the Dundee towel mill in the South. It's all like so many Black women that work in those places, and Latin women sewing, all that have lost their jobs right now because of what's going on. And if we can, we can kill two birds with one stone. They can make the masks and the gowns for the doctors and help them, and we can get them some money because they're out of work. Then let's do it instead of, I don't know. I'm not going on Instagram with some goofy shit.
But that's a good thing because you have people who are working in the industry that's desperately needed right now because textiles, the masks, the gloves. The reason why there's a shortage is because the United States outsourced all of its manufacturing to China and other places, And so now you have states fighting over the current mask. Like Governor Cuomo talked about that recently, how New York is having bid with other states. He puts a bid in $1 a mask. Then that mask company calls back like, no, now the number's $7 a mask because I can get that. And if we can get people who already do these things and put them back to work, we kill two birds with one stone. We put food back on the table of families, and we get masks out to the people who need them, But I'm glad you said that because I always say we're going to get into our topic tonight, and we're going to get deeper into it. And before I get all the way into it, remember to subscribe, Dewan B on YouTube, DWANNB, hotepish.com. That's where we at every Thursday, 8 to 9 on acceleratedaradio.net. So you keep saying Black and brown, and I wish one thing I like about you, Ida, to me, you're the model of what Black and Brown Coalition is at its best. At its zenith. You're what we would like it to be. Unfortunately, that's not where we are right now.
Absolutely.
But you don't talk about it. You be about it. You live about it.
Okay.
And because like as a Black person, a lot of us have been getting tired of hearing a lot of that. A lot of Black and brown. It's like but we really don't fuck with each other like that. We would like it to be, but we got to talk
Absolutely.
about where things are right now, you know? And
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, no, so I do, I mean, I don't want to sound like I am some naive, idealistic person that lives with this, you know, a utopian ideal about what black and brown people could be.
Mm-hmm.
I know what they could be based on what our history is, but the problem is that, you know, divide and conquer is real. It's become very cliche,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like hiding in plain sight, right? It's the fact that people go around saying it all the time, but actually subscribing to it. So I live in the real world where I wholeheartedly understand where the dissent comes from both sides.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't operate, you know, ignorant of that. What I want to do is start unpacking it so we can start building some sort of inroads so that there can be, you know, head towards a solution and economic empowerment that can really grant us, you know, our own table. Because we always trying to sit at this damn table that wasn't even built for us to be there.
Hey.
You know what I mean?
That's the truth.
That's where I live. So, but that doesn't mean that I'm ignorant to the fact that there's tension, right? Because black people in America who, you know, the kidnapped black people, the chosen black people that were kidnapped and brought to this country and have built this country. The wealth of this country was built on the backs of slaves, which is the truth.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, it's not a theory.
Mm-hmm.
It's the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And so always at their expense, other people have continued to move beyond them or past them in the race,
yes.
if you will.
Yes.
And then you bring in, Latin people that come into this country through migration are put in a position of we gonna duck past these people and put y'all here,
mm-hmm.
and that causes tension and dissent.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, like there's so many things to unpack, because when it comes to Latin people, within the Latino, Hispanic, diaspora people, whatever you want to call them, because we're so proud to be Latino and proud to be Hispanic when we don't realize that those are labels that white people gave us to further divide us and to create this label that, you know, really means colonized in another language.
Hey, it really is what it means.
It really does.
Uh-huh.
You know, you see Latin people scoffing at Mexicans that don't speak Spanish, and I'm like, that's your colonizer's language. That's not our native tongue. I'm Puerto Rican and Dominican. My people are my people are African and Taino natives, and our native tongue, if it's my great grandmother's native tongue was an African tongue. She was a West African. They were brought to Puerto Rico. My grandmother's grandmother was the first in our family to speak Spanish,
mm-hmm.
because before her she was a slave.
Mm-hmm.
And then our native tongue of the island, which is not even Puerto Rico, which means rich port, which is, you know, what the Spaniards called it, because that's all it was for them,
mm-hmm.
is Borinquen, which the native word of the Taino Indians, who are the natives of our island, and our language was Arawak. So when you see Latin people scoffing at other Latin people saying you don't speak Spanish, it's the same thing that we do to black people in America, saying you speak ghetto English, or
mm-hmm.
you don't even know how to speak the Queen's English. But that's all our colonizers' language, and we don't have a grasp on it sometimes because it is intentional, right?
Yeah.
So when we start talking about Latin people and we start talking about the journey, there's an intersection of Latin people who are black, and that's where I land, right?
Yeah.
Because my grandmother, if you saw my grandmother, you would speak English to her. You wouldn't speak Spanish to her. You would have to speak to her to know that she didn't speak English.
yeah.
Because she was a black woman.
Yeah.
And so we have so much self-hate within our own community and so much anti-blackness within our own community. And when I tell you that, you know, it ain't just Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, and Mexicans who are anti-black, because Jamaicans, Bahamians, Haitians,
mm-hmm.
people, all of the island people are told the same narratives about black people in America. The bad word that America put out on black people
Yeah.
to keep them in a certain place. So then you have this, they call it anti-Yankee sentiment, right?
Mm-hmm.
You'll hear, we know Yankee.
The Yankee boys. Yes.
Yeah, they're lazy, they're violent.
Uh-huh.
They don't, and so we have this big old mess that was created by colonization. It's the greatest mindfuck of all time.
Yeah.
And you have all of these people in a space hating on each other, economically hurting one another, investing their dollar in their oppressor,
Yes.
and not understanding why anyone can't get ahead. You
Yeah.
know, like even when Tariq Nasheed was speaking, what he was speaking about, the immigrants and the hate, the angry rhetoric towards immigrants. At that very moment, I was speaking to people who had relatives that were Haitian and African,
Mm-hmm.
who were being held in immigrant camps
Mm-hmm.
in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So I'm like, when you're talking about immigrants, you're talking about your people too.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to be more informed about when having these conversations,
Mm-hmm.
because the people who follow Louis Farrakhan and Malcolm X don't realize that those are island folk.
Mm-hmm.
Louis Farrakhan was in a
His mother was from the islands, and Malcolm X's grandmother.
Bermuda. Yeah, one of them is Bayesian, and one of them.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because here's the thing. Right now, there's a movement going on with Foundational Black Americans. You brought up Tariq Nasheed's name, and there are a few other people who are involved with this. And there's been a lot of misconceptions, I think, about the movement, because a lot of stuff is taken in clips and put out there in those clips without giving a full context.
Of course.
What's going on with Foundational Black Americans? I've noticed, because I've talked to a lot of people with first gen or second gen backgrounds, and they take a lot of offense to black people and Tariq Nasheed talking about, hey, we're foundational Black Americans, we're different. And that's something that I don't think people shouldn't take offense to, because
I don't.
Yeah, I know you don't, because I want to put it out there for the people who are listening, because you understand more of the context of it, but a lot of people don't. So I want to make it clear for those who don't. When it comes to being foundational Black, that doesn't mean anti anyone. As Black Americans here, we've been trained since we've been here in the United States, then told that we don't have a history, we don't have a culture. Or we come from slaves, and basically we were slaves. Then Martin Luther King, Abraham Lincoln set us free. Martin Luther King gave us civil rights, and Michael Jordan can dunk on anybody. That's basically all we know about being Black here in America. So there's been a more recent movement to say, hey, look, no, we do have a culture here in America. We do have a history. We've been here in the Americas, quote unquote, according to the English history books, 1619. We know that there were sets of blacks that came from that came from Africa, brought here by the Spanish in 1526, that were then that stayed in, and we also know Africans were here long before that. Whether you're talking about the Algonquin people of the East Coast, the Mojave, the Folsom, dark-skinned Black Americans have been here in the United States, in Mexico, Central America, forever.
Absolutely. And let me say, I just want to make one point. When you said that we're brought here by the Spanish, I want people to really understand that when you say Spanish, that does not mean my people, because a lot of people call us Spanish, and they're like the Spanish people. Spaniards are white people, white European people who speak Spanish.
Yes.
Those are our colonizers.
Yes.
I am not Spanish.
Yeah, and people need to understand that. Yeah, the Spanish, let's clear that up real quick. The Spanish, after they beat the African Moors out of Spain in 1492, Queen Isabella and Ferdinand, a lot of Black people were run. That's what the whole running of the bull ceremony is, running them out of Spain and into other parts of the world, which they did first land foot in Santo Domingo and then Puerto Rico, and then we know that. But we also know that a colony was brought here to the United States, but the Spanish, when they came here initially, they couldn't. The people fought back and kicked them back out of here. But back to like we were saying as far as history, black people in America, we do have a history. And then we've been like, hold on, let's codify and let's get strong and rooted in our history here. Because they're always trying to connect us back to Africa. And we do come from Africa, but there are multiple movements here to the Americas. And a lot of us that are here amalgamated with the dark-skinned natives that were here. And so we've set our own culture here. We've created jazz. We created hip-hop. And it's not just the music. It's the inventions. We had the first...
Y'all created hip-hop with us.
Y'all were there. Y'all were there.
No. But Puerto Ricans and black people created hip hop together. And that's a fact.
No, they were there, but hip hop goes before 1972. You know,
absolutely it does.
If we gonna if we gonna do rap, you got to go back to the Last Poets. You got to go to Pygmy Markham. You can go back to the 20s.
I mean, but you can do that, and that's fine. But you know, and you talk to the people in hip hop, and they will tell you.
You talk about what's his name? I'm drawing a blank. What's his name? He's from the islands. I'm drawing a blank right now. You know what I'm talking about, 1972. Well, anyway, we created that. We created all of the American original art forms music, jazz, from the blues to hip hop to reggae. Not reggae. I said reggae. That's Jamaica. We're talking about bluegrass. We're talking about country. All of that.
Of course.
All of those bridges in the South after reconstructions, a lot of those were created by black engineers. You have so many things that we've done here in this country, and now we're finally like, okay, as black people, let's celebrate that history. Let's know who we are as a people. Let's codify around ourselves, and as we grow, as we become strong in who we are, we can then work with others and work with other people. But it's hard to work with. As a matter of fact, it's impossible to work with other people if you don't quite know who you are, because everyone needs to be strong to come up against what we're faced with, you know? And there's been a lot of pushback to that. And the pushback has been like, hold on. Us coming together ain't got nothing to do with anti-anybody else. It's just that before you invite guests into your house, you got to clean the living room and the kitchen, don't you?
Well, I mean, I don't have a problem with that, because I think the Latin people, or whatever you want to call them, the other diaspora children who are also children of Africa and the natives, our great ancestors, also have some house cleaning to do as well. But you're talking about the people who are forced into assimilation because they don't want to be persecuted. So. And not that that's any, that's not any better, because there are a lot of people who are Latin people who want to be white so bad because they tired.
I'm glad you said that. It's so. I mean, when I used to work at the bank, 9 out of 10 had white on their ID. I'm like, hold on.
Yeah.
like I don't think a lot of Latin people understand that. White people see race.
We can't do that. So it depends, because there are white Latinos, right? They are.
There definitely are. But these motherfuckers, they will look like Eric Estrada. Like, come on.
Yeah. Now, there's no. Well, I'm from Florida, so there's no way possible I could put white on any of my shit. Them white people would correct it. Like it happens at Florida State at school. Something on my paperwork said white because I was born in Boston. And they put white on my birth certificate, and that lady had a meltdown. And I was like, look, can't nobody be more upset about this than me.
Yeah.
Right? This fucks with my financial aid, because this is the reason why they do it, not because they think I'm white.
Yeah.
But it was just, there's such a, like, I believe in and I think, listen, I'm one of those people who believes that the assimilation is the worst thing that happens to, that integration is the worst thing that happened to people of color, period. You did not allow us to integrate into this reality on fair ground. You integrated us to maintain status and power.
The only thing that integrated was our dollars with their businesses. That was it.
That's it. Because when what happened in Oklahoma, and you saw people flourishing. It was happening in the 70s, and then here comes this bullshit. So I'm all about. I don't have a problem with that. Like I think, who am I to tell black people don't love yourselves, black people? You know what I mean? Like who who says that? And whoever does, I got a problem with you.
And here is the biggest thing that like I know, like when that made Tariq mad, and a lot of us mad. It was that when it comes to that, we come together when it comes to the resources, but it's like the thing. I remember one thing that made Tariq really mad was like when things happen, like say at George Zimmerman, or when there was like some sort of a crime. You don't see. I saw you, Aida Rodriguez, speaking up against that, but the people who have influence, it's like we don't get no help from no other groups when our people
I'm always calling on them. I'm always calling.
And I'm glad you're getting to the top, but the people at the top, like when you talk about black people, man, when it comes to when anything happens to any other group, when it came to them cages, you got our senators, you got our athletes, you got our rappers, all coming out saying, "Hey, no, that's wrong." But when something happens to us, we don't get the best of the best, the top of the other groups say, "Hey, that's wrong." Everybody's just quiet, and it's Jesse Jackson, and we don't want to hear that nigga talk.
No, I'm with you. I think that
needs to get fixed.
I got a lot of backlash when I did the video about Zoe Saldana, which I didn't think she should have done the Nina Simone project, right? I got a lot of backlash from Latinos because they said I was I was not being loyal to my people, and I was like, she's not being loyal to her people because she's black. And before she's anything, she's black, because that's the first thing you see about her.
Mm-hmm.
And she has to tell you that she's Dominican and Puerto Rican, because Zoe Saldana is darker than Quincy Jones's daughter.
Yes.
So she's black, right? So let's just be clear about that. And so the other thing that I said is like, Nina Simone, icon, hero, activist, like real activist back then, where it cost to be an activist. Like now, this shit is mainstream and everybody calls themselves an activist. Back then, there was a price to pay for speaking up, and did it unabashedly, unapologetically, who spoke out against colorism.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna put a prosthetic nose on a woman that, it was just ludicrous to me.
Yeah.
And I don't even blame, I don't fault Zoe for her naivete in the moment, because she really thought she was doing something, because the white people around her gassed her up.
Yeah.
Because you saw people around her.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's been the thing. Like, and this ties back into what you were saying. A lot of the racial tensions that have happened, people need to recognize that there's a greater hand at play. We've been playing like a chessboard right now.
Oh yeah, we're
and
for sure.
The frustrations that black people have right now is we have Zoe Saldana playing Nina Simone. We got these British actors playing Huey P. Newton and Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and Harriet Tubman and Aretha Franklin, Cynthia Erivo talking shit about black Americans, and play Harriet Tubman and Aretha Franklin and didn't do a good job. And that's a thing that we have, like, we got so many great black actresses and actors here. They keep going to get someone that's not from here to play us. And one thing about acting, and this is how it is with anything else, with any kind of art, when you're dealing with cultures, every culture has nuances that you can't teach. Body languages, feeling, and when you have someone who's not here from the soil playing someone from the soil, it just don't connect. It's the reason why David Oyelowo playing Martin Luther King and Selma, no one really connected with that movie. Like, these movies come out.
Let me say this, though. Jeffrey Wright played Martin Luther King before David did, and nobody paid attention to it. He did an excellent job. He was amazing, and we didn't watch it. We didn't support it. And so that's why they went and did another movie about it. So we have to also be accountable and support our own.
Here's the thing. We, as black people, if we know about it, we support it. Now, it's some things we may not. Some movies you just ain't going to know about. Some movies just didn't get the right promotion. It didn't hit anybody's radar to go and see. But
you should see it. It's called Boycott, and it's good.
Okay, it's because when you look at, I'll make sure to watch that. We're seeing a consistent pattern here of people coming in and playing us from Queen and Slim, and it's like the actors are getting some of the heat, which I don't agree with giving heat to the actor, because they're just playing a role. The heat goes to the people who fund it and say, put that person in that seat. And that's the thing that, because, if I'm watching a movie about something that happened in Puerto Rico, and I have a laundry list of Puerto Rican actresses, I want the Puerto Rican to play that, because their body language, the things they say, the words they use, they're going to know things that those writers don't know. And if I don't know that consciously, I'm going to feel it in their energy that they're transmitting out, to get the best projects. When they do Italian mobster movies, they get American Italians to play them, as they should. And so that's the thing that that's going on in Hollywood right now.
Listen, I'm not. Look, I'm one of the people that will tell these Latin actors, like, how dare you feel that you are not accountable to the very people who made you successful in the first place. How dare you think that your privilege makes you exempt from being accountable to those people?
Yeah,
that is me. I am that person, right? Because I've done Last Comic Standing. I've done, a bunch of shit. But Shaq All-Star Comedy Jam is
you killed that. I loved you in Shaq All-Star Comedy Jam.
But that was the first time people saw me in a platform, and that was a black man, and that put me on a black platform, right? Because he understood that I claimed my blackness, and I didn't go there like, I'm not like them. Look, I'm one of y'all, motherfuckers. I speak Spanish, but I'm still one of y'all. Tiffany, Wanda Sykes is who put me on Last Comic Standing. So for me to ascend into a place of being celebrity or whatever it is, well, I don't even want to be a celebrity, but if I want to be successful in the business, you think I'm going to turn around and turn my back on the very black people who are responsible for my success in the first place?
And that's the thing. You get it. You get it. Ida, you get it. Yeah. People need to hear you get it, because so many people have. You know what I mean?
I know.
Kid Rock.
I got in trouble. Listen, I do it all the time because I'm Puerto Rican and Dominican, right? My stepfather's Cuban. If they would have got Regina King to play Celia Cruz, they would have lost their minds. Look, Mexicans did not want J-Lo to play Selena. Because Selena was not, because J-Lo was not Mexican. So it's hypocrisy. And I don't hate my people. I love my people. That's why I can operate in truth about them and with them. So when we have these conversations, like, I completely understand that. I'm never going to be like, y'all tripping. I get it, right? So, and look, I don't go around pandering to black people like some people say, or because I have a son and a daughter and they are black people. They're black people just like me. They got an African American black American father, and they have a Puerto Rican Dominican mother. So they black from two different parts of the world, but they black, right? But I don't have to tell people I do this because I have black children. I do this because we black, right? And that's what it is. And I do it because it doesn't matter if I wasn't. The reality of it is that we have to be real about what has happened worldwide to the melanated people. And that is, my grandmother used to tell me that melanin is divine. That's why they always come for it.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Hey, we're going to take a quick Hotepish history break, and we're going to get right back to what you just said. Hotepish history for today, March 26th. Granville T. Woods. Who was Granville T. Woods? Granville T. Woods was known as the Black Edison. Really what it should be is Edison should be known as the white Granville T. Woods, because Granville T. Woods is a black inventor who invented the telegraph, and he's the person that invented the telegraph and then made the phone what it is today. Alexander Graham Bell bought the patent off of Granville T. Woods and put his name on it, and that's why you think that he invented the phone. No, it was Granville T. Woods. Granville T. Woods was a black man, 7 feet tall. He's a self-taught engineer, and he's someone who beat Thomas Edison in court 3 different times. Edison kept stealing his shit, and Granville T. Woods kept taking him to court and winning. Now you know that black man invented all that stuff if he's beating Thomas Edison in the court in the 1880s and the 1890s. So our Hotep-ish history shout out today goes to Granville T. Woods. Parents, know that your children's are little geniuses. They're little geniuses. Don't always force them into sports and force them into entertainment, thinking that's the only way out. There are multiple ways out. If Granville T. Woods lived today, they'd be going around trying to make him go to the NBA because he's 7 feet tall, and we wouldn't have had the phone. So know that our children are geniuses. Black people, we've contributed to this country not only with our labor, but with our mind. And Granville T. Woods is a shining example. Hotep-ish history shout out to Granville T. Woods. Yes.
That's great. And you know what's funny? There's a quote that Thomas Edison allegedly said, which was, everything comes to he who hustles while he waits. And now that makes me feel like he might have stole that shit from him.
He probably stole that from him.
Ain't no white man said hustle back then.
Hell no. Because people don't know Edison he hired a lot of black. His other person that he hired was Lewis Latimer. And that's the person that put in the filament to make the light bulb turn on for more than 60 seconds. So he had all these black people around him working for him, inventing them. He would see them do things, and he would just buy their shit or just take it. And but like I said, Granville T. Woods had the resources to sue his ass and win. So yeah, shout out. But back to what we were talking about here, and as far as it being, it's the thing I was thinking about, like when it came to like when they say like, okay, the black and brown, the Latin community, as people, we have to know that these labels have a place, but they don't define who we are. Like, cause I was just thinking like politically, like they'll say, okay, the Latin community. And I was just thinking like a Chicano from Riverside, LA has more in common with a black person from LA than that Chicano has from a Puerto Rican, I'm not from a Cuban that lives in Fort Lauderdale, that left Cuba because of the Batista reign ended. But the colonizer come in and say, hey, y'all a bunch of non-white people that don't speak English and speak Spanish, so y'all Latin. And that's something I think people need to, like, you know, question when it comes to these things. People need to get into who they are as people and amalgamate to other people who are like that and get around those kind of type people instead of letting their label precede them and letting that label be the reason they accept or reject another person. That's something I think that we can do as a people to, you know, get past a little of this nonsense that we're going through. What are some thoughts on your mind, Ida, that can get us through this, that can solve? I like talking about the issues, but I also like spending time talking about the solutions, because we all know the issues. How can we fix this shit?
Well, I mean, I believe it starts with education. And when I talk about education, I'm not talking about their education. Their education is always misinforming us, you know, instilling doubt and self-hate within us. It is about our own education, right? I think there's this thing these tiers that I believe in: education, accountability. You know, we make fun of things that have to do with mental wellness, which you and I have talked about before. It's like we don't realize how important that is for our survival, right? Mm-hmm. And, you know, you're talking about people whose frames their psyches have been fractured with white supremacy and misinformation about who they are. And there's such a level of self-hate that is hard to embrace others when you don't love yourself. Mm-hmm. So, and that exists in the black and brown communities alike. You know, when you talk about Latinos being told that you got to marry white so that you can advance your race, so that you can assimilate into whiteness, and the whiter you marry, the whiter your children will look, and the whiter your life will be, hence the better your life will be. That you're not good enough at your brownness. Like you look at black Latino people, right, whose ancestors are black and native. They've they mind fuck you into hating the greatest thing about you, your ancestors.
Yeah.
Like the you know what I'm saying? So it begins with information and education, and unfortunately for us, we rely on white supremacy to educate our children. And so we wonder why our children don't like themselves, you know, and then wonder why our children walking around being angry and violent, because that's what they've been indoctrinated into believing that that's all they can be. So for me, we have to have a serious lemon squeeze. When it comes to black and brown unity, I've talked to you about doing a town hall. We have to have an honest conversation.
You do. Because,
you know, the Latin people need to understand why black people have beef with them, and vice versa. Like, we don't, it's all misinformation. It's like it's like the instigator in school who kept running back and forth telling the other two people what they needed to hear so that they could have a fight after school.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's what's been so prevalent with us, that now we have all of this built-up rage and hate about feeling that the other is taking something from us. When, you know, like when you hear these people saying, you know, the black people are taking this from us, and I'm like, why are black people the measuring stick when white people they're taking it from all of us?
And that's the part that I didn't get, because, like, it's like I can't speak for other parts of the country, but I can speak for here in L.A. And a lot of the tension, I remember in the late 80s, early 90s, when you had an influx of a lot of Latinos to America, specifically from Mexico. And I remember as they started to come into our neighborhoods, there was a lot of fights. And then to the point to where now, like, on the streets, there's a lot of things that happen on the streets, and that's because those orders come from the prisons. And in the prisons, the Mexicans and the white Aryan nation, they're aligned. And it's like, hold on, how y'all? Them motherfuckers don't like y'all. And but you listen to them, and they'll put out an order to hit one of us on the street. And every here in LA, every 5 to 6 years, it's a fight going on between black people and Mexicans. And usually it starts with some shit from prison and goes out to the streets and then through the police departments, because, you know, and it's like, I think if I could speak to them, if I could speak to the Latin community, I would like them to like just understand how things are being seen. We got to understand racism, colorism exists across the world. You know, if they came out of Europe and colonized the country, you better goddamn believe it's a color-coded division system. But it operates differently in each country, because each country has a different person on top. But here in America, white Anglo-Saxon men run this place. And the way they see race is white, non-white. And when they say white, they really mean Anglo-Saxon, Protestant, Nordic is white. You know, they don't look at Spanish as white. They don't look at any other people as white unless it's time to get bigger numbers so we can take advantage of people. Okay, we'll include the Arab as white for today. You might not be white tomorrow, but for today, for this reason, we're gonna include you as white. You know, and they don't understand that that's how they see it. And if the people understood that that's how the power sees it, it's white versus non-white. The problem is the immigrants and the people, and a lot of black people too, see the world as black versus non-black. And that right there is the schism. They think, well, I'm not black. Well, not black ain't quite white either. And in America, there ain't no such thing as equality unless you're classified as white. And you allow these people to manipulate you and harm the people that know most about these people that can help defeat the system that we're in. And my recommendation would be for people, like you said, to educate themselves, to know who they are, and know that if anybody's coming in your ear saying, hey, go do my dirty work for those people, that ain't no good. You shouldn't listen to that.
Yeah, no. It's important it all starts with education and information, right? Because information is power. And if you don't have the education and the information, then what do you have? Hollow human beings walking about surviving and figuring out how to survive by any means necessary. So I just think that we need to start with information and education, and look, everybody go to their respective corners and build themselves up, because I do think that is important, right? I don't think that that means that we have to have an ongoing fight. Like, I'm from the East Coast, so I'm not used to the Latin black divide. Like, when I moved here, I was like, yo, like, why is it so segregated here? Like, we, in Washington Heights and the Bronx and Harlem and New York, like, you go all about New York, Philly, black and brown people, Puerto Ricans and black people live in the same neighborhood.
See,
like,
in LA, it started like that, but as they came in, like in Boyle Heights and on the east side, what they would do is they would just firebomb the black people who live there, firebomb their house and say, get out of here. And the neighborhood will become all brown, and the black person will move to Pomona or somewhere like that. That was a lot of things that was going on here in LA in the 90s, and it was like, where is this?
Well, now the white people have taken over those neighborhoods.
They in Boyle Heights.
Being gentrified. Yeah.
we only got 3 more minutes left, Ida. I thank you for tuning in. What are some things that you have coming up?
Well, I'm working on my TV show right now with HBO Max, and because of what's going on, I've been sitting down. Yeah, I've been at home writing it. So we're working on a half-hour comedy scripted show for HBO Max.
Okay.
And I'm working on my I'm always working on my stand-up, because that's my first love. And I'm also working on an animated series that I did a deal on. So I've been busy.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Any words of wisdom you'd like to give the people before we sign off on how we can get this all together?
Well, what I want to say is that there is definitely an agenda, right? And that agenda has always been more about the haves versus the have-nots than it is about race. Race is the greatest ploy that they implemented to facilitate that battle between the haves and have-nots. Because when you get all the way to the top, they don't look like none of us. So I just think that I think it's so important to invest your dollars into people who look like you. And it's so important to support the people who look like you, and as a practice, because we become mistrustful of each other and judgmental of one another, that if we started by building ourselves up and stop, feeding this CPT time thing and feeding the worst things that have been perpetuated by them about us. If we just really as a practice, started investing in ourselves, we would start seeing a paradigm shift that could then influence the next phase of how we get out of this hole, because we're in a perpetual hole, right? So if anything, I want to say to people is, instead of shitting on people who look like you, seek them out and invest in them. And that doesn't just mean time and attention. It also means dollars. Because if you build your businesses up and you build the dollar up and the value in the community and the equity, then you start having power. And that is what's more important than anything in this conversation.
You're right about that. And I thank you for that, Ida. And I appreciate you for coming on and calling up in and talking to us and giving us some wisdom. And my word of advice to the people is, look, know that, you got to build yourself up. And Black America is going through a renaissance right now where we're building ourselves up. And, that's not to be taken to offense by anyone else. It's us cleaning some house that some things that we should have done back in 1865 when we left the plantation field. We're a little late getting to right now. So understand that. And understand that. This is Hotepish, hotepish.com. Follow us, Dewan B, on Facebook, Instagram. And remember this. There are no perfect messengers, only perfect messages for those willing to pick up game. This is Dewan B. We out.
All right.